So, let's be honest, 2021 was a mixed bag in life and in video games. But in 2022, we have a lot to look forward to, and I mean a lot. I'm talking God of War Ragnarok, Elden Ring, Breath of the Wild 2, Gotham Knights, and that's just a couple off the top of my head. With everything looking so promising this year, we here at 5-9 Direct figured it'd be fun to look back at what games made 2021 not so great, and how developers can learn from their mistakes this year onwards. We'll be going in no particular order, and with that being said, let's get right into our list. Battlefield 2042, a game that was highly anticipated by fans of the series, including 5-9's very own Talon, but it unfortunately released as a buggy, glitchy, unpolished mess. One Reddit user who played Battlefield 3 and 4 for 2,000 hours played 2042 for only 19. The reasons were as follows. 128 players are way too much. You kill one enemy and you get immediately lit up from 3 different sides. The game having 128 players was one of its key selling points, by the way. But let's continue. The user goes on saying that you feel completely useless as infantry. The maps are battle royale maps. There are no classes but cringeworthy cash grab specialists, and this is even without addressing performance issues and hit registration. Vehicles ran rampant in the game's ginormous maps, which felt like ghost towns, and they really made pacing for matches drag. In terms of glitches, you could go on a field day looking at compilations of how broken of a state 2042 released at. One of my favorites was experienced by the media mountaineer, who saw player bottles just chilling in the sky without a care in the world as he's riding in a helicopter. Needless to say, players were in agreement with this Reddit user, with half of the game's player base dropping off by late November, which is also the same month that the game was released. Recently, talks of Battlefield 2042 going free to play have been up in the air, with players and spectators from afar speculating that this is EA's Hail Mary attempt to save the game. Do you guys think this is a good strategy? Let us know in the comments below. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. For me personally, when it comes to situations like this, clearly the game needed more time to cook. A lot of AAA games sadly release with a plethora of bugs these days. It's an unfortunate reality we live in, but you know how it's solved? Release games when they are finished. That's it. We see too many articles of developers being forced into crazy periods of crunch time. And while that may or may not be the case for Battlefield 2042, who knows how many problems could have been sorted out if this game was just given another year. Also, developers, publishers, whoever needs to hear this, stop trying to reinvent the wheel if it isn't necessary. Players were absolutely fine with having classes like every single Battlefield before it. Adding specialists like heroes in Overwatch and Apex Legends doesn't fit Battlefield because these are large-scale fights, consisting of 128 players now. It works in those games because you're 4-on-4 or 6v6. Plus, seeing 30 of the same specialists kind of defeats the whole purpose of making them unique anyway. Just leave the classes alone, okay? Good. Now, these are my suggestions on how Battlefield can improve in the future, but again, let us know in the comments what you would say to EA and DICE on how they could improve their games. Now, on to the next title. Balan Wonderworld, a title that spawned from the mind that brought us one of the most iconic video game characters of all time, Sonic the Hedgehog. That mind in particular is none other than Yuji Naka, the man who programmed Blue Blur's first entry and was producer during his jump into 3D. Naka wasn't just known for his work on Sonic games though, he also worked on other Sega classics like Phantasy Star, Choo Choo Rocket, Samba de Amigo, and Nights into Dreams. Naka eventually split with Sega in 2006 and created his own gaming studio called Probe, but he wouldn't go on to create a large-scale release until 2018. Square Enix backed Naka to make a project that would go on to be called Balan Wonderworld that made its way to consumers in 2021. Unfortunately for Naka, its launch was less than he might have hoped for, to put it nicely anyway. Balan Wonderworld received generally negative reviews across the board and really underperformed commercially. According to an article by Nintendo Life, on the Japanese charts, the game didn't break into the top 30 during its launch week, selling fewer than 2,100 copies, with similar numbers around the globe. So, what happened? Well, the game sucked. It sits at a 36 on Metacritic, and for users, it's not much better, being 47. One of my favorite pastimes is reading low score reviews on Metacritic, so let's go over a couple, shall we? One user named Bebog says in all caps, Do not trust these positive user reviews. This game is absolute garbage. Conspirator comments, worthless, painful even. A piece of trash game that offers only psychic damage to anyone that dares play it. Now that I've had my fun, let's actually talk about what was wrong with the game. The main feature of Wonderworld is the ability to change costumes, which each of them having different abilities. Sounds like a fun concept, right? Well, the issue is that by gaining one ability with a specific costume, another one is taken away, like very basic abilities that the player should be able to do at all times. For example, if you switch to an attack costume, you lose the ability to jump. Switch back to a jump costume, well, now you're defenseless. It's unnecessary problems like these that really hinder the experience. Add that on top of monotonous level design, the game not running so hot, bare bones gameplay, slow movement, and you got yourself in unfun time. It seems like everyone came to that same conclusion. Balan Wonderworld did not learn to adapt with the times, and that is what truly held the game back. When it comes to giving a game like this advice, I feel like Naka and his team need to be sure of one thing: is the game fun to play? If yes, you move forward. If not, you go back to the drawing board in terms of mechanics. Personally, I think the title's aesthetic and soundtrack are unique, but it's not enough to save the game. I would suggest to developers to look at other platformers like Super Mario Odyssey, Yooka-Laylee, and hell, even the old Sonic Adventure titles. Those games come with their own flaws, but at least Sonic is fun. But now I leave it to you guys. What do you think Naka or Square Enix could have done to have made this game better? Unfortunately, Naka has left Square since and appears to be moving into retirement after Wonderworld's performance. But it's still interesting to discuss what could have been. If you're at all interested in trying Balan Wonderworld, there is a demo available, so if you want to see if the game is as mediocre as people say it is, knock yourself out. Moving on to our next disappointing game, we have another sort of spiritual successor title with Back 4 Blood made by Turtle Rock Studios. A game that was supposed to continue the legacy of the Left 4 Dead franchise in a new era and improve upon it. It was advertised as being made by the same creators that were a part of Valve and worked on the original Left 4 Dead titles. But through further investigation, it wasn't exactly untrue, but more of a white lie. You see, when you actually go ahead and check the Carfax, it turns out that only 7 people from Turtle Rock actually worked on Left 4 Dead. 184 people, give or take, from Valve worked on the original Left 4 Dead, and from that team, again, only 7 joined Turtle Rock and worked on Back 4 Blood. So when Back 4 Blood is relentlessly marketed as being made by the creators of Left 4 Dead, you can see how it's just a teensy bit disingenuous. Now, sketchy marketing aside, I highly suggest people interested in the differences between the two games to watch ProBCat's video on Back 4 Blood. It really goes into detail on just how much the Left 4 Dead games were carried by Valve. From dynamic zombie ragdoll physics, to facial expressions, to music cues, to lighting, zombie limb and torso destruction, mod support, and a lot more. Basically, no matter how you slice it, Back 4 Blood is Diet Left 4 Dead. Hell, it's like comparing Great Value Cola to Coca-Cola, a wannabe knockoff made a decade later with more powerful hardware. Now, this doesn't mean that Back 4 Blood is a terrible, unplayable mess like some other games we talked about so far, but it's mediocre, just okay at best. Look at the PvP, for example. In Left 4 Dead, you can have zombies versus survivors in full-length levels, whereas in Back 4 Blood, you fight in these tiny arenas. The characters players get to play as just aren't as unique as they were in Left 4 Dead, and all the regular zombies look and react the same way to damage every time. If there's one thing that separates these two games, it's that one is dynamic and the other is not. Back 4 Blood runs fairly well, the gameplay is fine, but it's as if the title has no soul. Nothing that separates it from the other zombie first-person shooters out there, and that's the problem. Making an okay game after a decade of waiting for a true sequel to Left 4 Dead 2 is not what fans wanted and not what fans deserved. If I were going to give the folks at Turtle Rock Studios advice on a sequel, I would tell them to watch some of the developer commentary videos that were made ages ago in Left 4 Dead, and actually make Back 4 Blood the spiritual successor it has the potential to be. Also, don't market your game as being made by the creators of Left 4 Dead if you have 5% of the dev team. It's not that great of a look. Hopefully, if Turtle Rock gets another shot, they'll knock our socks off, but we'll just have to wait and see. Alrighty, so the last game we'll be looking at in this video is Grand Theft Auto: The Trilogy Definitive Edition. And this one is quite the head scratcher. The collection contains 3 of some of the most beloved games of all time, so it should have been a home run, right? Wrong. The main thing that took people by surprise when this remaster was shown off was the visuals. Some thought it was, not so bad, while a vast majority heavily criticized the game. It goes without saying that something about the new models looks a little bit off. But beyond the character models, the collection had serious performance issues on release. The worst offender out of all the titles had to be GTA 3. And for a remaster of a game that came out in 2001, dropping frames at this degree is inexcusable, especially when the graphics aren't exactly that intensive. The PC version of the collection ended up being removed because it wasn't compatible with the Rockstar Games launcher, which is really something you think a $4 billion company could afford to do, but hey, that's just me. To add insult to injury, Rockstar Thanos snapped the original version of GTA 3, San Andreas, and Vice City on all platforms. The only exception is for PC users. Since their port of the game was the weakest, Rockstar will allow those who have purchased the definitive edition to download the original versions of the 3 titles at no additional cost through the Rockstar store through June 30th of this year. At this point in time, Rockstar has made no announcements on bringing back the original versions. So unless you get the definitive edition, you'll have no way to play the original titles, which is kind of crazy. For a company as prestigious as Rockstar, it's pretty appalling to get a mess of a remaster like this. Was 2 decades not enough time? I mean, come on guys, look at the rain. Well, what the hell happened here? That being said, with all the issues this collection had, be it audio, performance-based, and functionality in general, Rockstar has released patches since release to attempt to make the experience better. Again, this is another situation where a game is released and it just simply is not finished. I didn't personally despise the look of the remaster, but at a closer glance, I can see why so many people were disappointed. My advice to Rockstar is to 1. Don't remove the original games in place of a half-baked remastered on release for full price. It's a slap in the face to consumers. And 2. Release games when they're finished. This is Rockstar we're talking about, guys. I doubt someone was forced to launch the game to be as soon as possible, but who knows, maybe that was the case. Anyways, let us know what Rockstar should have done when making this remaster, even if you think they shouldn't have bothered in the first place, and if you trust them to remaster other titles like Bully possibly in the future. And with that said, that's mainly all the games I wanted to talk about in regards to disappointing titles of last year. Let us know if you guys enjoyed this type of video and would like to see more in the future. And of course, for the latest in everything gaming, make sure to subscribe to 5-9 Gaming Direct for news, reviews, and more videos like these. Take care guys, Iron out.